AEW Dynamite tonight was a show carried not by the matches in the ring, it was a show carried by the promos. A lot of promo work on tonight's show as they continued the build to Revolution, which is, well, less than 2 weeks away, I guess. It's coming up not this weekend, but next Sunday. We had tonight a promo involving Christian Cage and Daniel Garcia after we got the official announcement that at Revolution, it will be Daniel Garcia, not Adam Copeland, challenging for the TNT Championship. So, in fact, it was exactly like what I figured last week with that concerto angle that was done as a way to write off Copeland. And so they're going to wait a little bit longer before they put him and Christian back in the ring together. Instead, Daniel Garcia is going to get the shot. Daniel Garcia went out there tonight, and he had a live mic on Dynamite, and he cut what I thought was a pretty decent promo. It's not the sort of thing that he's used to doing, but it's the sort of thing that he needs to do more of. And he has been mildly getting over more and more each week with the crowd. So that was one promo segment on the show. We also had a segment involving Sting and Darby Allin. And they were not in the arena live tonight, but we did hear from Sting for the first time since he was attacked by the Young Bucks a few weeks ago. Him and his kids were attacked by Matt and Nick. And it was a very kind of low-key, subdued, intense promo. Subdued and intense are two words that kind of run counter to each other, but that's the best way I could describe it. He looked dead in the camera, and he cut one hell of a promo. And he also made the announcement that his father had just recently passed away. So unfortunately, his father will not be able to see his final match. But I thought it was another good, hard sell for that tag team match. That is the real main event coming up at Revolution next weekend. It's not the three-way for the AEW World title. It's the Sting, Darby Allin, Young Bucks tag team match. The final match of Sting's career. And I thought he did a hell of a job in that promo tonight. And somebody else who did a hell of a job, I thought, was Wardlow. Now, this Undisputed Kingdom is on life support right now. No Adam Cole on the show. They didn't wheel him out there tonight. We did get the Kingdom. We got Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Mike Bennett was the one wrestling tonight. And like Matt Taven last week, he lost. Wardlow comes out by himself, though, later in the show. He takes a live mic and he proceeds to cut the best promo I've ever seen him cut in his entire career in AEW. Just burying anybody and everything. Talking about how pissed off he is. I'm glad that Wardlow on TV is pissed off. I was pissed off for him, watching him fall from grace from where he was at one time in this company to where he is now is a disgrace. And frankly, I've been wondering, why is it taking this long for Wardlow to get pissed off on TV? If I were him, I would have come out there on television and been pissed off a long time ago. But now they send him out there. Now they have him play off of what I'm sure is some very real emotion. Because if anybody has a right to feel frustrated and pissed off, it's Wardlow when you look at the trajectory of his career over the last 2 years. I mean, holy shit. But I thought he did a hell of a job with his promo too. Now, what it's leading to in the near term, I don't know. I don't know where he fits into this world title picture. And we'll talk about what he said and, more importantly, who he mentioned in his promo. But there were also 2 potential injuries coming out of this show. One involved Madison Rayne, who came into the show tonight having not wrestled in an AEW match in over a year. And it's been a little bit less than that, but still, she hasn't wrestled a Ring of Honor match since August. So I'm not sure she's had any ring time since the summer. Now, maybe that would account for some of the ring rust, if you want to call it that. She didn't look good in that ring tonight at all in her match with Deonna Purrazzo, and that was before she dropped herself on her head. A very scary spot. But according to AEW, it was the move of the night. And then at the end of the main event tonight, big trios match, it was Samoa Joe, Swerve Strickland. Partners, can they coexist? Out there teaming up with Brian Cage against Hangman Page, Hook, and Rob Van Dam. We need somebody to do the job. Let's call RVD. You can imagine how that match ended. But at the very end of the match, it looked like Hangman may have suffered a legitimate injury. I hope not. And Tony Khan hopes not. Because he's 1/3 of your world heavyweight title match at Revolution. He's the guy that I have on, we talked about this last week. He's the guy that I have taking the loss in that match. And so all of a sudden, if Hangman is seriously hurt and unable to wrestle at the pay-per-view, that leaves you with Samoa Joe and Swerve, one-on-one. And I'm not so sure that Tony Khan is ready just yet to put the title on Swerve. That could create some very big problems if Hangman is hurt. We'll talk about what happened and what Hangman was saying, audibly, to the cameraman near the end of that match. But we also have some other news. We had news that actually broke before tonight's episode of Dynamite. Now, some of you may have seen the news last week that Jennifer Pepperman, she has worked as a senior writer and producer for a number of years, going back to 2017 in WWE. Last week, Adam Pearce actually put a tweet out, putting her over and thanking her for her time. It was pretty clear that she had left or she was leaving. And had some supporters, wishing her well on her way out. So she was with WWE for a number of years and primarily was involved, I guess, with the SmackDown women's division, at least more recently. But it was said to be her decision. This was not a situation where she was let go. She was fired for some reason. She made a choice that she wanted to leave WWE. And now we know why. AEW issued a press release earlier this evening announcing that Jennifer Pepperman has joined the company as its new vice president of content development. She will be working alongside Tony Khan on development of content for Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. She's won multiple Emmy Awards. She comes from the soap opera world. So she's written for soap operas in the past before her time in wrestling. Now, Meltzer last week mentioned that she's very close with Mercedes Moné. And of course, it just so happens that Mercedes is very likely going to be making her AEW debut in Boston next month at their big business show. The big business episode of Dynamite that's coming up on March 13th. And so all of a sudden, it seems to make a lot of sense. Not only does this woman in Mercedes, is she getting the big debut treatment from Tony Khan, but now she's bringing a friend along that I'm sure she's going to be working very closely with, if that's the case, behind the scenes in AEW. So she's getting the star treatment here from Tony Khan, as well she should. But it's not just a good move for Mercedes. It's a good move for Tony Khan to get somebody in there who has experience in wrestling, working with the women, and working with the women's division somewhere else. And I think if that's what she's going to be doing, and it didn't say anything in the press release about her working specifically with the ladies only, but I do think getting somebody like that behind the scenes to help him can only be a plus for Tony Khan. Whether it's her or whether it's somebody else, whether it's a male, whether it's a female, him bringing in more help when it comes to the content, the creative, to help out, because we've heard the stories about Tony Khan, right? He's responsible for this. He's doing Ring of Honor stuff. He's got 3 different AEW shows, and he's got Fulham, and he's got a statistics company. He's got all these things going on, all these irons in the fire. And a lot of people have been talking about the AEW creative direction for a while now, and how it's very Jekyll and Hyde, as far as the creative direction of this company. And so I think him bringing in help like that can only be a positive thing. And I can't speak to this woman specifically because I don't know what story she was working on in her time with WWE. I don't know what credit she gets for certain stories in that company. You have writers in that company who may have come up with stories that suck. And you have people that may have come up with stories that were fantastic. And they'll never get any credit for those because their name isn't attached to it. It's not like an artist who can sign his or her name in the corner of the painting. It doesn't work that way. So I can't speak to her specifically, but I do think this is the sort of move that's going to be a big positive for AEW. Now, it is worth mentioning the fact that Pepperman was also one of the many defendants named in a racial discrimination lawsuit filed by another former WWE writer who I talked about previously on the podcast, Brittany Abrahams, last April. So it was less than a year ago that she brought that lawsuit against the company. Eventually, the lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, which means it cannot be refiled at a later date. A lot of people took that to mean that she must have settled. And when her lawyer was reached for comment at the time, the only thing that her lawyer would say is that they resolve things in an amicable way. So that says to me, settlement. Anyway, that's just a little side note there that she was one of many people, including Vince and Stephanie and other writers who were named in that lawsuit. But I'll bet that's what Vince McMahon is hoping for when it comes to the Janelle Grant suit, hoping for some settlement to make that go away. The only thing is, when you got the feds poking around, settlement or no settlement, that ain't going to go away so fast. This is your AEW Dynamite review. It is Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. I am the Solomonster. Thank you for joining me here. Please do subscribe and hit that like button. 400 likes is the goal for Be the Booker tonight. Super chats are open, as well as channel memberships. I think it was Zizou. Was it Zizou who gifted a membership before? Thank you, brother. Miguel, it's a personnel move. That's why it's important to mention. When a press release goes out and a company makes an announcement about somebody that they are bringing in who's going to be working behind the scenes, that is news. That is what we call news. Leave that to me. I will report the news to you. That's why it's being mentioned. If it wasn't worth your time, I wouldn't mention it. I got you covered. I'm not going to waste your time. Don't worry. All right, here we go. Let's get into the review here. We kick things off with the Blackpool Combat Club. Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli coming out for a match against FTR. And what a way to kick off the show here tonight. This was the best match on the entire show, and they kicked off with it tonight. Harwood had a bunch of athletic tape on his right shoulder. I feel like both members of FTR are just kind of constantly in a state of injury. All kinds of tape all over their body. Moxley hit a suicide dive that was meant for Cash Wheeler. Harwood, though, shoved his partner out of the way, and he took the bullet instead. Back inside, FTR isolated Moxley, and there were some audible boos from the crowd. And I think Taz even admonished the crowd on commentary for booing these two men. So Moxley came back with a big clothesline. He tagged out. Claudio worked over Harwood. He was setting up for the giant swing. Wheeler ran in. Claudio ended up picking up both members of FTR in a show of strength, and he dumped them both on their back. They ended up outside. BCC did with Harwood, and they connected on a spike pile driver to Dax on the floor. And that took us into the commercial break. Wheeler put Moxley down after the break with a brain buster. Justin Roberts announces that 15 minutes have gone by in this match. Didn't feel like it. But 15 minutes have gone by. We now have 5 minutes remaining. FTR set up for their suplex and splash combo, the Powerplex combo. Shout out Power and Glory. Castagnoli, though, broke it up. Harwood ended up sending Claudio into the corner, which crotched Moxley, and then he superplexed Moxley. Wheeler hit a top rope splash, but Moxley got the knees up. Claudio got a giant swing on Dax, who ate a kick from Moxley in mid-swing, and he covered Dax for another near fall. Moxley put Harwood in a chokehold, and Wheeler entered the ring to try to stop it. Claudio, though, put him in a chokehold. And Wheeler powered up Claudio, sent him crashing into Moxley to break the hold. Harwood put Moxley in a sharpshooter. Claudio kicked Harwood once. Nothing. He kicked Harwood a second time. Nothing. Harwood would not release the hold. So Claudio puts Cash Wheeler in a sharpshooter. And he's facing Harwood. They're staring at each other. Those two end up exchanging slaps. They let go of their respective holds. Harwood put Claudio down with a pile driver. Moxley then flipped off Dax. He hit the ropes. And as he's coming off, FTR is about to hit him with the Shatter Machine. But before Dax could get Moxley up for the move, the bell rings. So he picks Moxley up, but like in mid-move, he just stops. Instead of following through on the move, he just stops. He has no idea what's going on. But we get the announcement that the match has ended in a time limit draw. And of course, the crowd boos because that's not the finish they wanted to see. Crowd chanted for 5 more minutes, but fuck you. You don't get 5 more minutes. That's not how this works. Both teams started brawling. Wrestlers ran out. Producers ran out. Security ran out. Try to separate them. And they did for a little while, but then they got loose outside the ring and just a Pier 6 brawl broke out, and the crowd here in Oklahoma was for it. They were cheering this. They love this. So this was an awesome match, and a wild post-match brawl. We see, pull-apart brawls all the time, but this was well done. Crowd was super into it. This was basically a tornado match because I kind of lost track at different points of who the legal man was, and they didn't seem to care either, which is not exactly a rare problem. It's actually quite common in AEW. So even though it wasn't technically a tornado match, that's basically what this ended up being. Now, I didn't even realize that they were that close to the time limit until Justin Roberts made that time call. And look, it's a good reason to give these two teams, an explanation for why they would have a rematch at Revolution, which clearly they're setting up a rematch at Revolution. We'll get to that in a second. So it's a good reason to give us a rematch, but they shouldn't make a habit out of this. We just had a 30-minute time limit draw 2 weeks ago with Hangman and Swerve. Right? That was a great match. This was also a great match. And so I don't mind them doing it here, but I also don't want to see them make a habit out of doing the time limit draw thing too often, because then you run it into the ground. So hopefully that doesn't become a common occurrence here. But, a well-placed time limit draw every now and then is fine. One thing that AEW does that WWE does not do, that I like, is they have normalized the time announcements. So, sometimes it may feel a little disruptive, but you have Justin Roberts usually at the 15-minute mark announcing 15 minutes, 20 minutes. If it's a longer match, 25 minutes. And so they remind you that the time limit is a normal thing. In WWE, when we get the occasional time limit draw, it's just patently obvious what they're doing because they don't draw any attention to it because it's just not something that they've done over the years. Only when it's going to a draw will they draw attention to, oh wait, we only have so much time left in the match, right? I mean, so I like the fact that they normalize it, and so when it does happen, and again, it should be a rare occurrence, but it just feels like a normal part of the show, and it's not like, they're trying to insult your intelligence like, oh, we're doing a draw tonight. Really? Because you never mentioned the time limit before. So I like that. Now, Renee was in a hallway backstage with Orange Cassidy. Doc Samson was standing by. we were going to need the good doctor many times here on this show tonight. So Renee started to run through a laundry list of Orange Cassidy's very hectic schedule that he has been keeping over the last several weeks, including a trip to the UK, because he just went to the UK with Darby and Tony Khan to promote All In at Wembley. And there was a couple of photos online of Cassidy and Darby. I guess they were the guests of Tony Khan. Was it a Fulham game? Might have been a Fulham game. I don't know. I don't know if it's in season. They went to a game. And boy, did they look completely unenthusiastic to be there. But while they were there, they stopped at a Rev Pro show. And Orange Cassidy also, I think it was a title defense, defended his international title in a 7-way match at the Rev Pro show. Tony Khan was there too. He was up in the VIP box and he was, geeking out at different points and getting into it because he's a fan. So she's running down all these different things. By the way, they'll probably count that Rev Pro match in the rankings, I'm sure. The doctor said that Cassidy, he meets their requirements, the minimum requirement to be cleared medically. But he does meet the bar so he can wrestle tonight. And I got to give a shout out to Bliss Fan here because I noticed Bliss Fan made the comment in the chat that these AEW doctors, if they could, would clear Triple H to have a match. I'm pretty sure that's pretty bang on. Like if Triple H was on this show, Doc Samson would look at this guy, right? He would draw some blood, all right? He would check for his heartbeat, pulse up, sounds good. Blood pressure looks good. All right, you can get in there. You're cleared. It wouldn't take that much, I wouldn't think, to get that guy in the ring. He's good to go. Put that man in the ring. Alex Marvez was backstage with FTR. And FTR said that they came here to kick the Blackpool Combat Club's asses. Dax suggested another match at Revolution when Moxley and Claudio showed up. Now, they were being held back. They were being restrained. And then FTR had to be restrained. And so, again, we had a little pull-apart situation here between the two teams. And we got no clarity. We got no further clarity on the challenge, at least not in this segment, for Revolution. But obviously, we're getting a rematch of Revolution, and I'm all for it. Again, I thought the match tonight was great. So imagine what they can do on the pay-per-view. Speaking of Orange Cassidy, he was in action next. Non-title against Mike Bennett of the Undisputed Kingdom with Matt Taven in his corner. No Adam Cole this week. The announcers talked about how the Undisputed Kingdom laid out Chuck Taylor. They laid out Rocky Romero. And then based on what we saw at the end of the show last week, Trent Beretta was not cleared. So that left Cassidy flying solo tonight. He charged up the ramp before the match even began. Bennett tried to hit him with a belt shot. Cassidy ducked, and he made a beeline towards Matt Taven, who was behind him, and he dropped him. He blasted him with an orange punch. So the match officially began in the ring. Bennett quickly took over on offense. Cassidy, though, hit the Stun Dog Millionaire, a spinning DDT. Roderick Strong hit the ring. He distracted the referee long enough for Bennett to hit Cassidy low, and he hit a pile driver for a 2 count. Bennett controlled through the entire commercial break, and then he grabbed a headset from commentary like he's The Rock. He puts the headset on, he's cutting a promo, and the fans are booing him. Well, that little distraction there wasted time, and so when he turned his attention back to the match, Cassidy caught him with a pair of suicide dives. Bennett responded with a spine buster on the apron and a Death Valley driver on the floor. Back inside, Bennett took too long to follow up, and Cassidy exploded out with a desperation orange punch. Bennett was able to fight off the beach break. He hit a Gotch-style pile driver for a close near fall. Cassidy countered another pile driver attempt into a beach break out of nowhere and picked up the win. So another loss here for the undisputedly mediocre Kingdom here on this show. Matt Taven hit the ring with Roddy, and they just pounced on this guy. When all of a sudden, we hear music. I don't know whose music this is. I have no fucking idea. But I look up at the Tron, and the fans are cheering. The fans are going nuts here. And I look up at the Tron, and I see Jake Hager. And I said, my brain couldn't comprehend the reaction that I was hearing and the name Jake Hager. And it took me a few seconds to remember that they were in Oklahoma tonight. and that Jake Hager is from Oklahoma. He's not from Tulsa, where they were, but he's from Perry, I believe. Perry, Oklahoma. He's an Oklahoma boy. Hometown boy. So he got a hometown reaction on his way out. Thankfully, no stupid bucket hat on his head, although he did come out wearing shades and no shirt and gym shorts, that's certainly a look. And he ran down to the ring. He took out Matt Taven. He took out Mike Bennett. Roddy bailed. And the place went nuts because, again, hometown hero tonight for one night only. And he helped Orange Cassidy to his feet as they began to play this man's music. Excalibur on commentary says that Tony Khan has informed him that on Rampage this Friday, the match is made, and it's going to be Jake Hager one-on-one with Roderick Strong. And not only did they make the announcement, but they had the graphic up on screen already. They already had the little graphic up in the corner of the screen, ready to go. So are we supposed to process this as the match had already been made, but not announced? And so Hager came down to the ring to make the save and more so to attack Roddy because Roddy is his scheduled opponent for Friday? Or are we supposed to believe that this man here in his hometown, his home state, came out to make the save as a surprise for Orange Cassidy, and in the span of literally 20 seconds, if that, Tony Khan made the match announcement and they got the graphic whipped up. I'm not sure which. Either way, it was very silly. But that match is official now for Rampage, which of course is being taped tonight, so Hager gets a match in his home state. No Jim Ross on the show, even though they were in Oklahoma. For those who don't know, Jim Ross is recovering. He suffered a broken hip, and he is on the mend. So best wishes to JR. I don't know what that means as far as his chances of, being at Revolution in a few weeks. It's not even a few weeks. Like I said, it's next weekend. I know he and Tony Schiavone were hoping to, if not do the pay-per-view, they were hoping to at least call Sting's match in the main event. I don't know if he'll physically be able to do that. Which would be a shame because JR and Schiavone were the announce team for the first Sting and Ric Flair match in that building back in 1988. So it would have been nice, a little callback there to have the two of them doing it. But if he physically can't do it, then he physically can't do it. But all the best to JR. So Renee was backstage with Angelo Parker, and she was asking him, "Are you ready? Are you finally ready?" And I'm like, "Ready for what?" She said, "Are you ready to finally go on that first date with Ruby Soho?" And I had completely forgotten about this storyline, but they have been doing that storyline for a little while. And Ruby showed up, and she was all dressed up like she was ready to go out for a night on the town. As they went to go leave, a white Escalade pulled up behind them, and Ruby turns around and sees this, and she says, "Is that for us?" And he says, "No, I actually called a lift." I don't see anything wrong with that. So they walk off to go find the lift. Meanwhile, the camera is still focused on the Escalade, and they're shooting. And I love this. And again, I know why they do it. I'm picking nits here, but they do this on every wrestling show. Cameraman walks up to the Escalade, and instead of just having the cameraman stand there and shoot the shot of the door, he shoots the feet. Like he's got his cue. You got to shoot the feet. And then you do the dramatic, the raise up so you can see who it is. And the person who steps out of the car is Ric Flair. Now, we have not seen Ric Flair on television, thank God, in many weeks, which he doesn't have to be on television every week. When Tony Khan announced that Flair was going to be a part of Sting's retirement, I want to hitch my wagon to you, Sting. I want to be a part of this retirement tour. I was a little worried that they were going to put Flair on TV every week, which would have gotten old, like Flair. But they haven't. They've kept him off TV for a while. They bring him back in doses here and there. So he was by himself, and he was walking into the building. When they returned live, Renee caught up with Flair inside the arena. And she said, Revolution is just around the corner, and she wanted some thoughts on Sting's final match that was coming up. And Flair was uncharacteristically solemn and subdued. And he said, very serious, and he said that he was actually very disappointed because when he signed up for this, he thought that he would be more involved. I could totally believe that that's true. This was like the realest Ric Flair promo I've heard in a while. Like that, I could totally see Flair being upset that they're not doing more with him. Like legitimately. So he said he feels that he should be right in the middle of everything. Again, work shoot right there. I'm sure he really does feel that way. And he said that he hasn't been around the last 3 or 4 weeks. So that's been very disappointing. So now he's just going to explore his options. And he went knocking on someone's door, and the Young Bucks opened the door. They want to know, what are you doing here? And Flair asked them if they had some time, and they welcomed him into their locker room. This was actually a relief to me, because one of the things I've been talking about, one of the things that I was kind of afraid of that Tony Khan might do, and not that he still can't do it, but they kind of, I think, took that away tonight, is we get the swerve at Revolution, where if Sting wants to lose, I really think that Tony Khan is willing to give Sting whatever he wants. He let Sting pick his opponent for his final match. He wanted the Young Bucks. Sting probably wanted Flair to be along for the ride. Kevin Nash talked this week about Sting called him up and said, hey, I want you to come to the show and be a part of my last match. Probably just like in the front row or something. And Nash said that he couldn't. He asked WWE and it was a no-go. They're not actually going to let him be there. So I think Tony Khan is going to let Sting do whatever he wants. And if Sting says, look, I got to lose. I got to go out on my back. It's the right thing to do. Then Sting is going to go out on his back. And I'm thinking, okay, Flair might just turn on Sting one last time. He helps the Young Bucks win. Maybe they do a deal where Sting challenges him to a match on the spot. They do an impromptu match, right, to send the fans home happy or something. The fact that they had Flair here walk into the Young Bucks locker room as if he might actually side with the Young Bucks, I think takes that possibility away. It makes that a lot less likely, which is good. Because I've already seen Ric Flair turn on Sting 5,000 times before. I don't really need to see it again. But now we're left to wonder, what exactly are they talking about there in that locker room? Now, Tony Schiavone was up next in the ring, and he welcomed Daniel Garcia to the ring for a special interview here. By the way, just to go back to the Nash thing for a second, like I get that Kevin Nash, I'm sure he's signed to a Legends deal. All these guys are signed to Legends deal, except Flair. Flair used to be, apparently didn't pay him enough, so he wanted out of it. But even still, in a situation like this, and I don't know ultimately who's making the final call here. It may be Nick Khan. Yeah, Triple H is the chief content officer. Triple H is not running the company per se. I don't know who that final decision rests with, if it's Nick Khan, if it's a combination of the two of them. But you would think, as close as Triple H and Nash are, and this being a special circumstance, if Kevin Nash, a member of the clique, picks up the phone and calls WWE or reaches out directly to Hunter, and I would think that if anybody, he would have reached out directly to his buddy Paul. And they still won't let him be a part of the show just to even be there. Not even necessarily be a part of anything physical, or not that he could do anything physical at this point. But, I mean, how ridiculous is that? Think about the amount of time relative to his entire career that Nash actually spent in WWE. It's actually a relatively short period of time. Came into the company in 93. He left the company in early 96. He came back in 2002. That didn't last all that long, right? That went basically into 03. The majority of his career was spent in WCW and in TNA, more than WWE. And yet WWE is like, nope, you can't go. We got you under lock and key. I guess he doesn't want to give up the paycheck, so there you go. Sting won't have Kevin Nash there for his final match. I guess we won't get that Wolfpack reunion at Revolution. That's too bad. So Daniel Garcia comes down to the ring. And he said, a week ago, Garcia and Adam Copeland, they fought to decide on a number one contender for the TNT Championship, and we all saw what happened. Schiavone mentioned that Copeland is on the shelf after the concerto from Christian. He is unable to compete. However, at Revolution, Daniel Garcia is getting his TNT title match one-on-one against Christian Cage. And he congratulated him, and the crowd chanted, "You deserve it," at Garcia. Garcia said a lot of the time he feels he doesn't deserve it. So he genuinely thanked the fans for saying that. It means a lot to him. Says people always told him that he was going to be great. But he started to lose that confidence a few months ago when he was at his lowest point. But he knew that going through all of that, 3 seconds is all that it takes. It's all he needed. And at the end of the Continental Classic, he said he got those 3 seconds. And it changed his life. Every time he got down, the fans picked him back up. Every time he danced, they danced with him. He thanked the fans for helping him restore that feeling. And Adam Copeland, he says, no one knows how that match between you and I would have ended before the patriarchy ran in and interfered. But he has full confidence that he would have made him tap out. And he said he's going to see him again, but the next time he'll be holding the TNT title. And that brings him to Revolution. He had a message for Christian, but before he could get it out, Christian and the rest of the patriarchy interrupted, walked out on stage. We had Mother Wayne, we had Nick Wayne, we had Wayne Newton and Wayne Gretzky and whatever other Wayne Hart, right? Isn't there a Hart brother named Wayne? They got about 16 of them, so I'm sure one of them's named Wayne. They had Wayne, they had Smith, they had Dean, they had Owen, they had Bruce, they had Brett. Who am I missing? There's at least 6 more of them. So anyway, and Killswitch. Can't forget the dinosaur. He was out there as well. Christian said that Copeland will never have another shot at his TNT title ever again. He said Garcia stands there as the #1 contender for his title at Revolution. Says that Garcia's been on a hell of a run recently, racking up wins left and right, but as much as he would love to step into the ring with him, he really doesn't think that it should happen at Revolution. So it's not that he doesn't think he's not worthy. He just doesn't think he's ready. He likes his dance moves. He says Garcia likes his dance moves and his gyrations, but they're just distractions. He just wants to entertain the fans. And Christian just wants to leave the arena every night as the most dominant TNT champion of all time. Smith Hart, that's who I missed. I said Ross. Didn't I say Ross? All right, maybe not. Ross Hart, Smith Hart. There's too many. Or there were too many. It's actually very sad what happened to that family. He said he knows something that these people don't know. That Daniel had a pretty dark childhood, didn't you, Daniel? And at that point, you just knew, uh-oh. We know where this is headed. Says, you didn't have so many happy memories. Do you know a Jackie Garcia that lives, and he gave a specific address. Do you know a Jackie Garcia that lives in Buffalo, New York? And can you confirm to me that Jackie was married to David Garcia? And I understand that David Garcia is your father. And your father is dead. Now, wouldn't it be a fairy tale ending at Revolution for you to hold that title above your head in memory of your father, but your father wasn't so great now, was he? Says your father was actually a piece of crap. He was a loser alcoholic who lost his life to the bottle. And unlike him, I don't want to hurt you, Daniel. I want to help you. Unlike him, I want to make sure you realize your full potential. So at Revolution, I don't want to be your opponent, Daniel. He goes, I want to be your father. This man is a menace. Garcia said, yeah, now I would have thought that by now I'd kind of be tired of this, but I'm really not, actually. I fucking love Christian Cage. Every time he comes out and picks up the mic, I sit here and pay attention to every single word the man says. And even though I could see the line coming from a mile away, the one thing is it's become very predictable. And so, again, you would think like, all right, it's not going to really hit the way that it used to. I could see it coming, and even still, when it hits like fucking crack. I love it. I love it. Garcia said, since you know so much about my dead father, why don't you come down to the ring? And he said he'll put Christian in the ground right next to him, which was a pretty badass line there. Christian sent Nick Wayne to the ring instead, and Garcia immediately took him down and put him in a sharpshooter. Killswitch was down to the ring next, but before he could get inside, Matt Menard hit him in the back with a chair. They made the save. He and Garcia held court in the ring, each one with steel chairs. They held back the patriarchy. So there it is. The non-ranked Daniel Garcia, nowhere to be found in the rankings, is now the #1 contender for the TNT Championship. Look, I've said my piece about these rankings, all right? It's just ridiculous. I like the match. I don't mind them doing the match. I think it's great, but it's ridiculous. So they are, in fact, going to do Daniel Garcia one-on-one, which I prefer. I wasn't sure if they might turn it into a three-way like the world title match. I'm glad it's one-on-one. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we're going to get a new TNT champion at Revolution. I'm not ready to commit one way or the other to a prediction on who I think is ultimately going to win. I'm kind of on the fence right now, leaning towards Christian. But Daniel Garcia can walk out of there with that TNT title if Adam Copeland was to show up and play a role in the finish of that match. If Killswitch and or Nick Wayne tries to get involved and Copeland makes his triumphant return to stop that from happening, and Daniel Garcia, who is riding I don't want to say a wave of momentum, like, he's the biggest star in the business right now. He's not. But he's getting more and more fan support as time goes on as a babyface, especially coming out of the Continental Classic. Kind of the underdog coming out of that tournament. He does the stupid, silly dance, but the people have been getting a little bit more behind him. But he is one of those young guys on the roster that Tony Khan is obviously very high on. And he's very talented in the ring. They have been trying with him to have him with the dancing stuff, be a little more charismatic and show off a little more of his personality, which he has to. I think that's a good thing. But you know what? If you want to get over one of your young guys, your young quote-unquote homegrown guys, well, this is the way to do it. Somebody like Christian Cage, who I love Christian's whole shtick right now, and I think he's great. But if you want to put over one of the young guys, you have one of the vets go in there and do the honors for it. And you put that TNT title on Daniel Garcia, because that's really what that title should be for. It should be a championship that helps elevate people like Daniel Garcia, who are right there in that middle of the card level, but you want to try to elevate them to upper mid-card. You want to try to elevate them to that next level. When the TNT title started out, that's not really what it was necessarily designed for. You had people like Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin, and Cody in particular, because he couldn't wrestle for the world title, because he made that dumb decision that, well, I lost, so I can never again challenge for the AEW title. He made the TNT title his own. And Cody was one of the biggest stars in the company. He was one of the EVPs, so you couldn't really call it a mid-card title at the time. But I think that's really what that title now is designed to try to do, or should be, is to try to elevate someone like a Garcia, or like a Ricky Starks, or like a Powerhouse Hobbs to that next level. I thought that would be the case with Wardlow. We'll get to him later. Didn't quite work out that way for Wardlow. But they're obviously saving the Copeland-Christian rematch for Double or Nothing. Who says it has to be for the TNT title? Why do we need to see Adam Copeland go on to become TNT champion? We already saw it. We saw it at World's End. He won the title already. Now, granted, it was only for a few minutes, but so what? He held his first gold since 2011. It's already been done. He doesn't need a title. What the fuck do you need to put a title on him for? So yeah, I think they could easily take that title off of Christian and still do Christian and Copeland in some kind of gimmick match at Double or Nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. Renee was backstage with Hangman Page, Hook, and Rob Van Dam ahead of their trios main event tonight. Page said that they wouldn't be there if RVD had beaten Swerve in their hardcore match a while back. RVD rambled on about something. I don't know what he was talking about. It sounded like he maybe was celebrating a little too early, if you catch my drift. But then again, he always sounds like that. We had Timeless Tony Storm in a warm-up match for Revolution, non-title, against Sydney Winnell. Tony hit a corner splash, and then a running bulldog. She hit the running hip attack in the corner. She hit the Storm Zero pile driver. Could have ended it right there. Chose not to. She applied an ankle lock, which she is dubbed break a leg. And then she let go. And she opted instead to pull back on both arms, and Winnell gave up immediately in the Venus de Milo submission. That is, of course, Deonna Purrazzo's submission. She instantly gave up. So an easy win for the champion, and that brought out her challenger, her opponent at Revolution, Deonna Purrazzo, who we were also told would be in action tonight. And we got this awesome split screen shot. As Deonna made her way down to the ring, she and Toni, as she was entering, Toni looked like she was leaving, and they crossed paths, and they had on screen, half the screen on the Deonna side was in color, half the screen on the Toni side was in black and white. That was awesome. And I have to really compliment their production, because with this Toni Storm character, some of the things that they have done with the black and white stuff, I think has just been fantastic. So that was a great shot. Purrazzo went one-on-one with the returning Madison Rayne, and this was not good at all. This was not a good match. There was a terrifying spot where Madison spiked herself. She did it to herself. She spiked herself right on top of her head. But even before that, you can't even blame it on the injury. Even before that, she was very sluggish, moving in slow motion. I don't know what was going on. Now, again, I mentioned it earlier. This is her first AEW match, televised match in over a year. You have to go back all the way to last February, the last time she had an AEW match. She had a Ring of Honor match last in August. I don't know that she's wrestled any matches since then. You know, she works as like a coach or an agent for the women behind the scenes in the company. So maybe you could chalk it up to ring rust and the fact that she just hasn't been working a lot. I don't know. You can attribute it to whatever you want. She did not look good here in this match. Purrazzo and Rayne, they did a double clothesline spot. And then came the spot that I was referring to, where Deonna looked like she was going for a flatliner. That's what it looked like to me. She wasn't really doing it any differently than any normal flatliner that you would see. And for whatever reason, Madison tucked her head on the way down, and she landed right on top of her head. And it was not even just that she landed. She spiked herself down into the mat right on top of her head. And just to give you a sense of what this looked like here, that was the moment of impact as she landed right on her head. And as you can see there, they made it the move of the night. This was their move of the night, presented by TurboTax. Are these people for real? This was the move of the night. A near-death experience here for Madison Rayne. And Doc Samson was at ringside. He came over. He didn't get into the ring, but he came over immediately to ask the referee if he was needed. And Madison must have told Paul Turner that she was okay because she called the doctor off. I mean, they only went another 15 seconds anyway. She probably just wanted to get the finish done. There's no way that she was okay after this. I mean, I'm hoping, nothing's broken or fractured or anything like that, or concussed. But at the very least, she obviously rang her bell. I mean, how could she not? Look at this. So they went right to the finish anyway, which was Deonna applying an ankle lock, which is the break a leg submission that Toni Storm uses, and Madison tapped out. So this was bad, but hopefully she's okay. The most important thing is that hopefully she is all right. That was very, very scary. After the match, Toni tried an attack. Deonna knocked her down. And then Purrazzo went after Mariah May. In doing so, that allowed Toni to apply the break-a-leg on Purrazzo's left ankle. Referee managed to pull Toni off, and Toni she's laying on the mat up against the ropes, looking at Deonna, who was sitting on the mat against the ropes on the opposite side. And we got another cool shot where they, again, right down the middle, one half of the screen in color, the other half of the screen in black and white. And Toni begins to smear lipstick all over her face. She's doing her best Chelsea Green as Laurel Van Ness in TNA impression, smearing it all over her face. And then she rolled out to the floor. I still can't believe they chose that as their move of the night. That was certainly a choice. Holy shit. Who made that call? They replayed the Young Bucks attack from 2 weeks ago, that great angle at the end of the show after Sting and Darby won the tag team titles, where they laid out Darby and Sting Sting's offspring. Stinger number 1 and Stinger number 2. And then they cut to a pre-taped Darby promo. And he and Sting, he said, have been looking at some old photographs. And he looked, I guess, over at Sting off camera and asked for Sting's permission if it was okay if he showed the Bucks some of these photos. And Sting said it was okay. And he showed a photo of Sting and his sons, Garrett and Steven, back when, and Darby said at that time, they were the same age that your kids are now, Matt and Nick. And it looked like a photo from the Wolfpack era because Sting was there. He had the red face paint on, so this was obviously from probably 99 or something. Then Sting walked into camera frame. And he was very reserved and subdued, but he just had this intense look in his eyes as he was staring into the camera. And he said, in all his years in wrestling, no one has ever messed with his own flesh and blood until the Young Bucks. He said he's had lots going on in his personal life over the last few weeks. Besides this, he said 7 days ago or so, another family member of his father, passed away. Christ, don't let Christian know. He said he was a hero to him. He taught him right. It makes him think a lot about his own mortality. He used to think he was so invincible, but time catches up with everyone, and it caught up to him for sure, he said. He knows truly that he is not invincible, but one thing he does know also is that everything he's got left in him, he is bringing to Revolution. And it's going to meet the Bucks face to face. Says they have a fight on their hands, the fight of their lives. This is a great segment. And also condolences to Sting. Obviously, that is very shitty news and shitty timing, too, because he's got his final match coming up, and I'm sure he would have wanted I don't know if his mother is still alive, but he would have wanted his father, I'm sure, to, if not be there, to see his final match, and now he won't be able to, but that's very sad. But he showed some great intensity here and fire, but again, in a way that's different. When I say somebody shows fire and intensity in a promo, you'd think Samoa Joe. Going out there and looking into the camera and screaming and just, putting people in their place. This was different, though. This was a different type of intensity. And it's hard. It can be hard to emote in a mask or with face paint on. I couldn't tell if he was tearing up or crying or not, but just looking dead into the camera and as serious as could be, delivering a stern message to the Young Bucks, basically saying that, in so many words, like, I'm going to kill you, Revolution. That's what I read from the look on this man's face. And that's exactly what this should have been. When you consider the attack 2 weeks ago, he beat up Sting and Darby, but these two bozos beat up the man's kids. So Sting should be upset. And Sting doesn't have to come on here and scream and shout. All he needs to do is come on here and do exactly what he did. And say, look, I've been through a lot of personal shit recently. What you did is something that nobody has ever done to me in my entire career. And so I make this vow, I make this promise to you that I'm coming for you, and it's going to be the fight of your life. Perfect. It's all this needed to be. And I am actually very much looking forward to this match. I'm a little worried because I don't know what Sting is going to do. We've seen some things that Sting has done in matches before. He usually makes it out, not all the time, he usually makes it out unscathed. The last time when he jumped off that ladder and he undershot the table was ridiculous, and I think he knocked out some of his teeth. But whatever he's got planned, this is it for him. And I truly believe that. I know we kind of make fun of wrestling retirement sometimes, like, yeah, it's the end for now, and then he'll be back. No, I trust that this is it. And he realizes it. Like Tony Khan said, you can go to All In, get the big send-off at Wembley, and he was like,
Samoa BRO.
And he was like, I'm not going to make it. Like, this is it. It just feels right. So there's no telling what he's going to do in his final match, but I am very much looking forward to it. And again, make no mistake about it, that is your main event. I was wondering a few weeks ago if they would close with that, but there's no doubt that they're going to close with that match, and it's the right main event for that show. And frankly, it's another reason why I'm not expecting a world title change on the show. I don't think there should be one, but if there was going to be, how do you not close the show with that if you're going to change the world title? It just doesn't make sense. So the timing for that doesn't even fit. After a break, Tony Schiavone was back in the ring, and now we go from that great promo to another great promo. And it's almost like the tale of two promos, because I just got done talking about Sting being very subdued. A subdued intensity from Sting. This was not a subdued promo from Wardlow. Wardlow was his guest. He came out by himself, no other members of the Undisputed Kingdom. He immediately got in the ring, grabbed the mic, and told Tony that he needs to get his old ass out of there if he doesn't want to get knocked down again. He said that he was pissed. And you could tell because he was pacing back and forth and he was very angry about something. He said he was pissed because 2 years ago he had thousands upon thousands of people chanting his name city after city in a manner that hasn't been heard or seen in decades. He was the next big thing. They strapped the rocket to his back, but apparently they strapped the rocket to his back upside down, which I actually thought that was a funny line, because that is kind of what they did. They strapped the rocket upside down. Instead of going up, it sent him the other way. Ever since, he's been driven into the ground and screwed over and over and over again. You would think the one true homegrown AEW megastar would have been champion a long time ago. And yet he's never received an opportunity for the heavyweight title. And people back there need to be fired and jailed for that fact. There might be some people in WWE who need to be fired and jailed, although for very different reasons. But I stopped myself here and I said, wait a minute. Hold on a second. It is true that Wardlow has never gotten an AEW World Championship match. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a few years. Was there not, after CM Punk, I believe it was after CM Punk wrecked his foot, and maybe it was the second time he got hurt, I don't know, but there was a situation where there was a battle royal, and the winners, or the final two in the battle royal, went on to have a singles match, I think, to crown a number one contender for the interim title. It was some hodgepodge like that. And if I remember, I don't think Wardlow either was in the match, or maybe there was a promo where he said he didn't want to get a shot that way, or that's not the real time, or something like that. I just remember vaguely, like, why would Wardlow at that time, in that situation, not want to be part of something like that? It didn't make any sense to me. So I was thinking to myself here, yeah, but you may have passed on an opportunity once before. But it is true. He has never had the chance to compete for a world title in AEW. He said there's been a lot of men around here. He refused. Okay, see, I knew I wasn't crazy. He refused. That's what happened. On TV, he refused. He turned down the tournament. So I don't want to hear this nonsense about how I've never gotten an opportunity. You fucking idiot. You turned down an opportunity. I remember it now. It's right. We ranted about that at the time, how stupid it was. He shot it down. You have nobody to blame but yourself. Don't think we didn't forget about that. I mean, I kind of forgot a little bit, but you reminded me, so thank you. He said there's been a lot of men around here claiming to be the best. There's kings, there's gods. So what does that make him? Because the best in the world, the real world heavyweight champion, I beat his ass like nobody has in his entire career. He said his body is still falling apart from me. Which brings me to our former champion, the guy who's better than you, and you know it. I squashed him like an insect, and I beat him like nobody ever has in his entire career. Which brings me to the most dangerous man in the room, the king, the current AEW World Champion, Samoa Joe. Can somebody remind me what happened when him and I were in the ring? That's right, I choked his ass out, and I beat him too. Oh, and by the way, he says, big shiny titles and custom suits look a hell of a lot better on me. So again, I ask, and again, I'm not going to replicate the screaming that he was doing. I mean, he was loud and angry as he was running through this promo. A lot angrier than I sound right now. So again, I ask, what does that make me? Because it sounds like I'm the best in the world. It sounds like I'm better than you and you know it. It sounds like I'm the most dangerous man in the room. I am the uncrowned AEW king, and it's time that I start eating like one, because I have been starving and I am done being fed scraps. He said, look at me, look at me. And he pointed up to the Tron, and they showed him, and he was looking and admiring himself. He's looking at himself. He says, I'm the baddest son of a bitch to lace up a pair of boots. There is no one that can stop me. And if anybody wants to get in my way, just know this is no longer wrestling. This is war. Holy shit, where has that guy been? Where's that Wardlow been? This is the guy that I've been waiting for a while. That was the best promo I've ever seen him cut. And I love that they had him rightfully call attention to the shit booking that he has had to deal with for the past 2 years. I like the fact that they're at least acknowledging it, because everybody else is already acknowledging it. You can't ignore it. You may as well embrace it and use it as part of his story, as part of his character arc. Why wouldn't Wardlow be pissed off and upset about the way that he has been treated in AEW over the last 2 years? He has every right to feel that way. And we've seen it. We watched when he hit the peak of his popularity. It was the night that he powerbombed MJF 10 fucking times at Double or Nothing. And he beat the piss out of that guy. He went out, remember the upside down oxygen mask, they had to carry him out, right? That was the peak for Wardlow. And at that point, it's like a fork in the road. You're going to go left, you're going to go right. He didn't go left. He didn't go right. He dug a hole and he jumped inside. And he's been buried ever since. Now, there have been things that have happened. I remember at one point they had their international tour and they went to Canada last year. He couldn't go, I think, because his car was broken into at one point and his passport was stolen and there was an injury at one point. So it's been a combination of bad booking and bad luck. But the last 2 years for this man has been absolute dog shit. And he was getting genuine reactions from the crowd, like big star reactions from people who liked this guy and wanted to get behind him, and they could have done something with him, and they did nothing with him. He had the TNT title. I think he had it 3 times. I can't remember anything memorable about any of the times he had the TNT title. It's all just a blur. The fact that Tony Khan squandered something that he organically had in this man is one of his greatest booking failures in the last 5 years of AEW. Wardlow is right there at the top of the list. So he should come out here and he should be pissed off. Now, he talked about beating these men. He never beat CM Punk. CM Punk and Wardlow never had a match where Wardlow pinned him or beat him. Now, he did, I think, beat up CM Punk. I think it was during the feud with MJF. He probably powerbombed him. That's what he was referring to. So, technically, I don't think he actually beat CM Punk, but the MJF thing is just ridiculous. And if you think back to what happened that weekend, again, it was all about MJF because he no-showed an appearance, and then there was a lot of talk about his contract status. And unfortunately, all of that ended up completely overshadowing Wardlow. MJF showed up on television that Wednesday like nothing ever happened. The guy got powerbombed 10 times and needed oxygen. And he showed up on Dynamite. Not a stitch, not a bruise. He cut that promo. He called Tony Khan a fucking mark. Everybody was talking about him in that promo. Nobody was talking about Wardlow. And he never recovered from it. And I'm not putting all the blame on MJF for that, because Tony Khan is as responsible, if not more, for not following up, but he was never the same. I mean, you could draw a straight line to that Double or Nothing pay-per-view in 2022, I guess it would have been, and it's just been downhill ever since. So this is the intensity, and this is the promo I've been waiting for this guy to cut. He came back, and what has he been doing? He's been doing the same thing he did at the beginning of his career. He comes out, he powerbombs guys, and he leaves. I've been waiting for him to get on the mic and say what he said here. So I thought this was great. And now the question, of course, is what's next for Wardlow? That's a great promo, but how are you going to follow up on this? It's not like he's getting a world championship match at Revolution. So what are they going to do? If Samoa Joe retains at Revolution, you can do Samoa Joe against Wardlow? 2 heels against each other for the world title, a Double or Nothing? I don't think so. Now, instead at Revolution, they're doing what I think Excalibur on commentary said, is something called Meat Madness. And they laughed because they had no idea what that meant. But I assume he'll be in there with somebody like Miro or Hobbs or some big guys. Meat Madness is what we're going to get with him at Revolution. I don't care about Meat Madness so much. I care about what happens after Meat Madness. How are they going to follow up on this promo? How are they going to keep this guy hot as an attraction and as a possible number one contender, especially if he's not getting a shot for a while? What do they have lined up for him going forward? Because he is still a heel. He is still part of the Undisputed Kingdom, even though he was out there by himself tonight. But it goes back to what Adam Cole said when he first cut that promo and they had their mission statement, right? He said, the Kingdom have the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. Wardlow is going to win the World Championship and then he's going to hand it to me. Remember, that was the story. Wardlow goes after the world title, and when he wins it, he gives it to me. And remember Wardlow's reaction at that time? It was like, yeah, okay. They planted that seed. The only question is, when does he go after that world title? Now, if Swerve were to win the title at Revolution, they could set up Swerve and Wardlow for Double or Nothing. I just don't see that title changing hands yet. And I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't take it off Joe. So as long as you have a healed Samoa Joe as the world champion, you got to still keep Wardlow out of the picture until you get that belt back on a babyface. But this was great. This was long overdue. Renee was backstage again, and this time she was with the Don Callis family. Konosuke Takeshita, Powerhouse Hobbs. Callis talked about Takeshita facing Will Ospreay, which is coming up at Revolution. Said that they would both be part of the Callis family when it was over. Callis said that even Tony Khan was there to watch Ospreay over the weekend at the Rev Pro show. He said everyone thought Ospreay would fly back to the United States with Tony, but the Callis family will pick him up in the UK and bring him back for the match. And Callis spoke about Hobbs briefly, and then he called Sammy Guevara a little cuck. And that got a rise out of everybody in the live crowd. Callis said they had a score to settle, and he would be keeping an eye on Guevara. That led us to our main event of the night. Samoa Joe, Swerve Strickland. Opponents at Revolution, tag team partners tonight. Can they coexist? Teaming up with Brian Cage of the Mogul Embassy, taking on Hangman Page, Hook, and the returning Rob Van Dam. Kind of a weird collection of people here thrown into this match. I was waiting to see what they would do. Hook wanted to start out with Samoa Joe, and so they did. And Joe slammed Hook down multiple times. Hook switched to body shots and a flying clothesline that took Joe down. Joe was able to turn the tables on him, tagged in Brian Cage. Hook was able to escape and made a tag to RVD, and he had a little back and forth with Brian Cage. After a series of switches, Page made the blind tag, and he came face-to-face with Swerve after RVD sidestepped a flatliner attempt. After a commercial break, it was Hook being held up in a delayed vertical suplex by Brian Cage for a 2 count. Cage wanted a Death Valley driver, but Hook countered enough into a DDT, which led to a hot tag from RVD. And that pissed off Hangman that he didn't get the tag. RVD ran wild, hit Rolling Thunder on Swerve and a 5-star frog splash on Brian Cage for a 2 count. Joe argued with the referee, Aubrey Edwards, as Swerve blindsided Hangman on the apron with a running boot. We got some quick tags from Team Joe. That took us into the second commercial break here of this match. RVD was isolated the entire commercial break before Joe missed the charge, and RVD hit a spin kick into the double down. Page and Cage, they made the double tag, and Page sprinted right at Swerve, trying to get his revenge before dropping Brian Cage with a Hurricane Rana. Swerve sidestepped a slingshot dive. Page, though, hit a pump kick to counter a rolling flatliner by Swerve. Back inside, Hangman dropped Brian Cage with a Death Valley driver. And Samoa Joe was there to clobber him with a running boot. So things broke down. Everybody was hitting big moves at this point. And there was a moment here where Hangman Page had the chance to end the match. He had the chance to go and hit the buckshot to Brian Cage, or he could hit the Orihara moonsault on Swerve. And he chose Swerve. So he went up top. Cage cut him off, though, before he could hit the move. and Hook was there. We ended up getting a Tower of Doom spot with Hangman on the worst end of it. He got suplexed over. Hook sank in Red Rum on Brian Cage, who made a blind tag to Joe. Hook ate a pop-up power bomb from Cage and a house call kick from Swerve. Hangman flew in with a buckshot lariat to Brian Cage. So Joe, Swerve, and Hangman were left alone in the ring. Swerve and Joe took out Hangman, who rolled to the floor. Joe hit a tope. Swerve went for a pump kick off the apron, but he missed Hangman. He took out Joe by accident. And Hangman grabbed Swerve and he powerbombed him off the apron through the announce table. And the table shattered upon impact. Joe ducked a buckshot back inside and he hit a snap power slam for 2. RVD took out Brian Cage with a slingshot splash, made the tag. Joe was waiting, but did not see Hook waiting, and he ate an exploder. RVD went up top for the 5-star frog splash. Brian Cage shoved him off and wiped out Hook with the discus lariat. Joe sank on the coquina clutch. RVD faded and passed out. So RVD eats the losing fall here. No surprise there. But there was a spot here where Joe went for the muscle buster to Hangman Page. And Hangman slipped out of it. So Joe didn't do anything. Hangman slipped out. When he landed on his feet, though, it looked like he tweaked his ankle. And he stumbled forward, and that's when he made the tag to, I guess it would have been RVD. So Hangman was a non-factor for the remaining minute or so of the match. He went out to the floor. Joe's holding up the AEW World title in the ring and celebrating. Swerve is on the outside. He's smarting. He's staring up at Joe. He doesn't look very happy. Meanwhile, I'm looking, if you look at the hard camera view, I'm looking directly ahead to see on the other side of the ring outside if there are people around Hangman. And there's nobody around Hangman, but the cameraman goes over to Hangman and he's got the camera on him. So I'm waiting for them to switch the camera shot, and they do. When they put the camera on Hangman, Hangman is clutching his ankle. And he's looking up at the cameraman, maybe not realizing he's on TV yet. And he is waving him off. And he's waving the guy off and he's telling him, stop, don't shoot me, don't shoot me. Like the cops are there or something. That's not good. It didn't look good when he landed on his feet and he fell forward. It looked like he may have tweaked his ankle or he tweaked his knee. The fact that he was waving off the cameraman, don't shoot me, he's clutching the ankle. I'm hoping that he just maybe rolled it, sprained it. And look, you could have a really bad sprain too. I don't want to minimize an ankle sprain because there are some serious ankle sprains that take a long time to recover from. My point is, hopefully it's nothing serious because the timing could not be any worse if Hangman is hurt enough that he can't work. You know, he is 1/3 of your world title match on the pay-per-view, which is less than 2 weeks away. So the timing would not be great. It is a 3-way match. So if Hangman were to go down, it could turn into a singles match with Joe and Swerve. But again, the dynamic here is such that I was not expecting anybody except Hangman to take the losing fall in that match. And so if you take him out of the equation, and it really wouldn't make sense to put anybody in his place, it's a world title match. You're not just going to put somebody in there. It presents an interesting conundrum for Tony Khan because I would not be beating Swerve. But I also don't think it's the right time yet to put the title on Swerve. So it really screws things up. If I'm right, and Hangman is in there to take the losing fall, it really potentially messes things up here. But that did not look good. Hangman, interestingly, was still playing babyface for much of the match, and the crowd was mostly cheering for him. They were not booing him. Although that one spot where he elected to try to hit the moonsault on Swerve instead of getting the win, again, it just illustrates how obsessed he is with getting revenge on this man. So if he is going to go full heel, and maybe he won't, but if he is, I don't expect that transformation to happen until Revolution. And that's assuming he'll even be at Revolution. But I will say, I was waiting to see what they would do here in this match, because the match when they announced it last week just felt thrown together. And now having watched the match, I don't really see what the point of this was, other than just to put these guys in some kind of match, just to get them on TV. It didn't do anything to further my excitement for that match. I was already looking forward to it. I think, it's going to be a very good match. But I can't say that what they did here did anything for me. Didn't really serve much of a purpose as far as furthering that story much. It was kind of more of the same. We know Hangman is obsessed with Swerve. I didn't need them to do what they did here to tell me that. So it was a fine main event, though, otherwise. RVD, Hook, Brian Cage, they were just background players in the overall story. And that's how Dynamite went off the air. It was a very up and down show. I thought it was a decent show. It was very promo heavy, but the promo stuff on the show was very good. It was very good, especially the Sting stuff and the Wardlow stuff, more so than the Daniel Garcia one. But I thought that stuff was the highlight of the show. The best match was the opening match with FTR and the BCC. So it was good. It was good, but it was also one thing I didn't like about it. And they've done a good job of slowing things down a little bit on most weeks. Because this show, it just had this reputation for going 100 miles an hour. And they don't give you a chance to just stop and really process what you just saw. I'm looking at my notes as I'm going along here, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like 2 segments behind. Like, what? They're moving on to the next one already. You go to Renee 16 times in the back, and then you come back, and boom, 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 and they just don't give things a chance to breathe. And they had been doing a better job of that recently. And tonight, it was right back to that just frenetic pace that I don't like. I just wish they would slow down and maybe not try to fit so much stuff into the show. And I didn't even mention everything. There was a segment that was very quick, like a quick hit in the back with the Bang Bang Scissor Gang to set up something for Rampage. Who gives a shit? So there were a couple of things I left out that just weren't really worth mentioning here. But just noticeable how much they try to really squeeze in, and they just go boom, boom, boom from one to the other here. But let's check out the poll. Now, if you didn't see the Raw review I did on Monday night, I'm doing the polls a little bit differently, at least for the weekly shows. I might do thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle for the pay-per-views. But I'm doing a star rating system. Now, I only have 4 options on Twitter, so I can't go 5 stars. It's 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. I did that for Raw. And Raw still did a pretty good score. Let's see how Dynamite did tonight. Not nearly as good. Wow. 28% of you gave tonight's show 4. Well, this was not a 4-star show. I agree with the 35% that gave it 3 stars. I think that's fair. 17.8%, 2 stars, and 18.8%, 1 star. That is with over 1,000 votes in so far. At Solomonster, let me know how many stars. Do you give Dynamite all the stars or no stars? You let me know. We're gonna do our own little star ratings from now on. Change things up. It was something that someone suggested, and I thought that was an interesting idea, so that is what we are going to do. It was a very story-driven episode tonight, but not everything hit the way that they probably hoped that it would. Let's start here with Orhan. By the way, the goal tonight was 400 likes. Do hit that thumbs up if you have not done so. We are currently sitting at 360-ish. So we got a ways to go there. Orhan says, buy or sell. 08 to 10. 08 to 10. That's my dumbass. My mistake. Buy or sell 08 to 10 Orton or Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. I mean, I love the Orton character stuff that he was doing in 09. Not so much the WrestleMania match that he had with Triple H. I don't know, it's tough because Orton was full-time at that time, and we don't get to see Roman very much. I was enjoying Roman's stuff more than I am now until it just started to get a little long in the tooth, but I don't know, they're both great. They're both great characters, I think. If I had to choose, though, between the two of them, I would go with Roman. But Randy was doing some pretty good work during that period. I'd go with Roman Reigns myself. Noel Mulligan says, all right, boy. Solomonster, that's Cork slang for hello. Hello. What was your first wrestling event? Mine was Dublin, 1995, the best year. My first wrestling event was Madison Square Garden, the day after Christmas, 1987. That was my first live event. Bender McSimpson, on Monday, someone asked who swings a chair harder than The Rock. Balls Mahoney in ECW swung the hardest chair shots I have ever seen. Well, you were probably watching more Balls Mahoney at the time than I was, so I probably didn't see a lot of Balls's. I probably didn't see a lot of Mahoney's work from that period. I've seen obviously some of his stuff, but I wasn't like a huge ECW guy. So you're probably right, but I still say The Rock is someone. The Rock was an absolute menace with that chair. Barry says AEW is about to put out 4 new songs based off eras of Sting. Will be on YouTube an hour after I send this super chat. Well, then by now they should probably be up, right? That was 57 minutes ago, so it should be going up. 4 new songs based on the eras of Sting. I mean, they don't have the rights to the best song of all. So, I mean, if you're not going to have Man Called Sting, what are we even doing here? He does this. He does that. I mean, the lyrics are just legendary. The Real CS says, in my opinion, these constant time limit draws are starting to get far more annoying than the cheap DQ finishes. It's getting repetitive. Well, we've only had 2 of them recently. But my point still stands. I agree in that you don't want to overdo it. So if we get another one in the next few weeks, I'll start worrying at that point. Because then they're just going to run it into the ground. I don't mind it yet, but you can have too much of a good thing. Barry just saw from WrestleOps on Twitter that a taped episode of Collision will go head-to-head with Night 1 of WrestleMania. Good luck with that. Good luck. Well, look, I mean, they don't make those decisions. It's a network thing, so, you know, it's probably out of their hands. But obviously, they're going to have their work cut out for them that night. Food Hive with the 1999. Good to hear from Food Hive. Long time, the restaurant I am a chef at was visited by TikTok food critic Keith Lee when he visited Dallas, and I'm in the video. I'm the one with a beard and a hat. Spoken like a true wrestling fan. Brunchaholics is the restaurant. We've been busy as fuck, thank God. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. Is the video up? I assume the video must be up now. Send me a link. Send me a link, and I'll look for the guy in the beard and the hat. I want to see this. Brunchaholics. That's very cool. Libido Bell has been fined by Bryan Danielson. Actually, no, that's HBKC83. Was fined by Bryan Danielson. This super chat is sponsored by the energy drink Solomonster Surge. Flavors include Gunthar Grape, Brie Berry, Popstar Popsicle, and Bliss Fan Banana. Oh, Bliss Fan definitely banana. You got that one right. Hey, Libido Bell, thank you, man. See, those flavors would sell. I think we may be onto something. I think we may be onto something here. You got Lady Fire Panda Lemon, right? We can come up with some other ones. Orhan. Why did Triple H beat CM Punk in 2011, who then lost 2 more pay-per-views? What are you asking me for? I didn't book that shit. I talked about it. I ranted about it at the time. There's still no good reason for it. There's still no good reason for it. Chris Manson with the $10 super chat says, honestly, what do you do with Wardlow? Swerve has to be the next champion. Then after Swerve, maybe Ospreay. So possibly Wardlow can take it from Ospreay, but that seems like early next year at best. No, I mean, you could have, if Swerve gets it next, maybe Wardlow beats him for it, and then Ospreay could beat Wardlow. What? You don't have to put the belt on Ospreay so soon. There's no need to rush the belt onto him. Like, Tony Khan, he got his guy, and I'm sure he's got him locked in for a few years. Like, Ospreay will get the belt at some point, but you don't have to rush it onto him. HBK C83. Is Christian undoubtedly the greatest TNT champion of all time? He is in my book. He is in my book. Wapatapa, I should have listened to you, so you should always listen to me. I'm looking out for you guys. I don't steer you guys in the wrong direction. You should always look out for good advice that I'm trying to give you. Good life advice. You should always listen to me. I have your best interest in mind. Isaac, have you seen OpenAI's text-to-video model, Sora? Everything that you just said to me in that super chat is a foreign language. I have no idea what you're talking about. So the answer is no, I have not. And Marios Rumaliotis dropping 99 cents. Marios, thank you very much. I think that might have been his, was that his first one? That was third. It's his third super chat ever. Thank you, Marios. Much appreciated. Let's see where we are on the goal right now. We are at 4:03. Boy, just getting in there at the last second, aren't you guys, huh? Just getting in there at the last second. I see you guys. All right, let's be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Yeah, Dara, I think Dara's right. I think that super chat may have been written by AI. You never know these days. You just never know these days. All right. Be the booker time. Let's do it. Let's kick things off tag team style. That's the way we do things around here. This is it. This is how we do it. And we are going to begin here with the former tag team champions, undisputed tag team champions, Cody Rhodes and his Uso, Jey Uso. Main event Jey Uso. There we go. I like the way we're kicking this off. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso going to be taking on Damian Priest and Finn Balor of the Judgment Day. Feel like that's, wasn't that the match? Isn't that the match that we saw? Or I guess the Judgment Day beat them to get the belts? Be the Booker is very in tune with WWE booking to give us Cody and Jey Uso against Finn Balor and Damian Priest. It's a very appropriate match. All right, women's Be the Booker time. Let's see here. We begin with Trish Stratus, WWE Hall of Famer Trish Stratus. The lovely Trish Stratus. Lovely as always. Always good to see Trish. Trish Stratus going to go one-on-one with Bayley. Bayley challenging for the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania. That never happened, did it? We never did get Trish against Bayley. I don't believe we did. I don't think so. I think we only got it maybe in tag team form, but never in singles form. Okay, so what is that? That's 2 for 2, right? We had a clean sweep on Monday, didn't we? Didn't we? I'm keeping my mouth shut. I'm not saying anything. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying a word. Let's see here. Let's see how we do. Men's Be the Booker. We begin with the man called Sting. One of the many eras of Sting. This is the era of Sting that I grew up on. Surfer Sting. Surfer Sting. With that hair and that face paint. Look at who's interviewing him. Look who's there in the corner. Tony Schiavone. Little baby face Tony Schiavone. He doesn't look a day over 22. Very appropriate that we talked about Sting on this show tonight. And Sting is in Be the Booker. And now we find out his real retirement match. Who is going to be his final opponent? Sting one-on-one with the man they call Vader. Yes, singing Vader. One of my favorite all-time feuds from WCW. The White Castle of Fear strap match. The King of Cable tournament final. These two men had 3 fantastic matches in WCW 1992. Sting and Vader, and that means tonight we got ourselves a clean sweep. Sting and Vader. I mean, what a fucking match. What a main event. You can't get any better than that. As far as like a Sting opponent, Vader's got to be his best opponent ever. Those matches that they had, by the way, if you are a newer fan or if you weren't watching WCW at that time, if you got a Peacock subscription, just do yourself a favor. Go look those matches up. Those matches were fantastic. They had some bangers, said the Juliet. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Agreed. Vader has been on fire. Has been fire and be the Booker. That's right. We did. What was the other match that we did? Vader was in the main event on Monday. He was. Who was it against? I forgot. I really forgot who it was against. Was it Brock? Because Vader and Brock is like, you know, that's like, that would have been the dream match right there. But who did Vader land on for an opponent on Monday? Remind me, somebody. You do that while I look up some of these other super chats here. Bender McSimpson. It was Brock. Okay, so it was Brock. Yeah. Oh my God, Brock and Vader, Sting and Vader. We need one more opponent now for Vader on Friday. Vader against who on Friday? Who should it be? Trying to think of who else is in there. Maybe Bobby Lashley, maybe? I don't know. Who would we like to see Vader against and be the Booker on Friday? Well, if we go 3 for 3 on Friday, that's our first full week clean sweep, which we've never done before. We came very close last week, and then I screwed it all up. But I'm not gonna say anything else because I end up jinxing these things. Bender says, what do you think of having Okada and Mercedes come in as a power couple? Mercedes can do most of the talking, and they have money themes. A power couple? I don't think that's necessary. I don't know that we need them as a power couple. Romantically or otherwise, I don't think we need to do that. I don't think it's necessary. Zachariah Sitchin, O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s comments about AEW was valid, and also I knew Tony Khan would flip out and call him out with a tweet for all that is good and decent. Someone take away Tony Khan's phone. He did make some good points, and I will talk more about that probably on Sunday. As I will what the Juliet mentioned here in his super chat. Have I seen Cena's comments on Howard Stern about Vince McMahon? Yes, and you can go on my Twitter to find out what I thought about that. But I will be talking about that more extensively on Sunday. It's not something it's not appropriate for me to get into it on the Dynamite stream. But I did post something on Twitter earlier today, so you can go and check it out there. Friday night, here's the way things are going to go down. Friday night is a taped SmackDown, but I am planning on going live when it's over, so that'll be Friday night. The plan for Elimination Chamber on Saturday, it's a 5 a.m. Eastern start for the pay-per-view. I'm planning on going live around noon. It'll be sometime between 12 and 1 during lunchtime in the afternoon. So that'll give people some time to watch the show, wake up. I think that's a better time to do it, so that is when I will be live. It'll be a rare early afternoon stream on Saturday. Episode 850 of these things. It's dropping on Sunday. And then, of course, live again for the Raw review on Monday night. So you guys have a lot of content. Thursday, tomorrow, really is my only day off between now and Monday. So you got plenty of Solomonster content coming your way. Thank you for hanging out with me here for the Dynamite stream. I appreciate it. We'll come back and do it again next Wednesday. Until then, be well, stay safe. I'm going to go get some sleep, and I will see you back here for the SmackDown stream on Friday night and Elimination Chamber on Saturday. Until then, take care, guys.